Canto 24. In that part of the youthful year wherein the sun his locks beneath Aquarius tempers, and now the nights draw near to half the day, what time the hoar-frost copies on the ground the outward semblance of her sister white, but little less the temper of her pen, the husbandman whose forage faileth him rises, and looks, and seeth the champaign all gleaming white, whereat he beats his flank, returns indoors, and up and down laments, like a poor wretch who knows not what to do. Then he returns, and hope revives again, seeing the world has changed its countenance in little time, and takes his shepherd's crook, and forth the little lambs to pasture drives. Thus did the master fill me with alarm, when I beheld his forehead so disturbed, and to the ailment came as soon as the plaster. For as we came unto the ruined bridge, the leader turned to me with that sweet look which at the mountain's foot I first beheld. His arms he opened, after some advisement within himself elected, looking first well at the ruin, and laid hold of me. And even as he who acts and meditates, for I it seems that he provides beforehand, so upward lifting me towards the summit of a huge rock, he scanned another crag, saying, "To that one grapple afterwards, but try first if 'tis such that it will hold thee." This was no way for one clothed with a cloak, for hardly we, he light and I pushed upward, were able to ascend from jag to jag. And had it not been that upon that precinct shorter was the ascent than on the other, he I know not, but I had been dead beat. But because Malebolgia towards the mouth of the profoundest well is all inclining, the structure of each valley doth import that one bank rises and the other sinks. Still we arrived at length upon the point whereon the last stone breaks itself asunder. The breath was from my lungs so milked away when I was up, that I could go no farther. Nay, I sat down upon my first arrival. "Now it behooves thee thus to put off sloth," my master said, "for sitting upon down or under quilt, one cometh not to fame, without in which whoso his life consumes such vestige leaveth of himself on earth, and smoke in air, or in the water foam. And therefore raise thee up, o'ercome the anguish with spirit that o'ercometh every battle, if with its heavy body it sink not. A longer stairway it behooves thee mount. 'Tis not enough from these to have departed. Let it avail thee if thou understand me." Then I uprose, showing myself provided better with breath than I did feel myself, and said, "Go on, for I am strong and bold." Upward we took our way along the crag, which jagged was, and narrow, and difficult, and more precipitous far than that before. Speaking I went, not to appear exhausted, whereat a voice from the next moat came forth, not well adapted to articulate words. I know not what it said, though o'er the back I now was of the arch that passes there, but he seemed moved to anger who was speaking. I was bent downward, but my living eyes could not attain the bottom for the dark. Wherefore I, "Master, see that thou arrive at the next round, and let us descend the wall, for as from hence I hear and understand not, so I look down and nothing I distinguish." Other response, he said, I make thee not, except the doing, for the modest asking ought to be followed by the deed in silence. We from the bridge descended at its head, where it connects itself with the 8th bank, and then was manifest to me the Bolgia. And I beheld therein a terrible throng of serpents, and of such a monstrous kind that the remembrance still congeals my blood. Let Libya boast no longer with her sand, for if Cheladri, Jaculi, and Pharai she breeds, with Kintri and with Amphius Baena, neither so many plagues nor so malignant e'er showed she with all Ethiopia, nor with whatever on the Red Sea is. Among this cruel and most dismal throng people were running naked and affrighted, without the hope of hole or heliotrope. They had their hands with serpents bound behind them, these riveted upon their reins the tail and head, and were in front of them entwined. And lo, at one who was upon our side there darted forth a serpent, which transfixed him there where the head is knotted to the shoulders. Nor, so quickly ere, nor I was written as he took fire and burned, and ashes wholly behooved it that in falling he became. And when he on the ground was thus destroyed, the ashes drew together, and of themselves into himself they instantly returned. Even thus by the great sages 'tis confessed the phoenix dies and then is born again, when it approaches its 500th year. On herb or grain it feeds not in its life, but only on tears of incense and amomum, and nard and myrrh are its last winding sheet. And as he is who falls and knows not how, by force of demons who to earth down drag him, or other operation that binds man, when he arises and around him looks, wholly bewildered by the mighty anguish which he has suffered, and in looking sighs, such was that sinner after he had risen. O justice of God! O how severe it is that blows like these in vengeance poureth down! The guide thereafter asked him who he was, whence he replied, I reigned from Tuscany a short time since into this cruel gorge. A bestial life and not a human pleased me, even as the mule I was. I'm Vanni Fucci, beast, and Pistoia was my worthy den. And I unto the guide, tell him to stir not, and ask what crime has thrust him here below, for once a man of blood and wrath I saw him. And the sinner, who had heard, dissembled not, but unto me directed face and mind, and with a melancholy shame was painted. Then said, It pains me more that thou hast caught me amid this misery where thou seest me, than when I from the other life was taken. What thou demandest, I cannot deny. So low am I put down because I robbed the sacristy of the fair ornaments, and falsely once 'twas laid upon another. But that thou mayest not such a sight enjoy, if thou shalt e'er be out of the dark places, thine ears to my announcement ope, and hear. Pistoia first of Neri groweth meagre, then Florence doth renew her men and manners. Mars draws a vapor up from Valdemagra, which is with turbid clouds enveloped round, and with impetuous and bitter tempest over Campo Pison shall be the battle, when it shall suddenly rend the mist asunder, so that each Bianco shall thereby be smitten. And this I've said, that it may give thee pain. Canto 25. At the conclusion of his words, the thief lifted his hands aloft with both of the figs, crying, "Take that, God, for at thee I aim them." From that time forth the serpents were my friends, for one entwined itself about his neck as if it said, "I will not thou speak more," and round his arms together and rebound him, clinching itself together so in front that with them he could not a motion make. Pistoia, Pistoia, why resolve not to burn thyself to ashes and so perish, since in ill-doing thou thy seed excellest? Through all the sombre circles of this hell, spirit I saw not against God so proud, not he who fell at Thebes down from the walls. He fled away, and spake no further a word, and I beheld a centaur full of rage come crying out, where is the scoffer?" I do not think Maremma has so many serpents as he had all along his back, as far as where our countenance begins. Upon the shoulders, just behind the nape, with wings wide open, was a dragon lying, and he sets fire to all that he encounters. My master said, "That one is Cacus, who beneath the rock upon Mount Aventine created oftentimes a lake of blood. He goes not on the same road with his brothers, by reason of the fraudulent theft he made of the great herd which he had near to him, whereat his torturous actions ceased beneath the mace of Hercules, who peradventure gave him 100, and he felt not 10. While he was speaking thus, he had passed by, and spirits 3 had underneath us come, of which nor I aware was, nor my leader. Until what time they shouted, "Who are you?" On which account our story made a halt, and then we were intent on them alone. I did not know them, but it came to pass, as it is wont to happen by some chance, that one to name the other was compelled, exclaiming, "Where can Cianfa have remained?" Whence I, so that the leader might attend, upward from chin to nose my finger laid. If thou art, reader, slow now to believe what I say, it will no marvel be, for I who saw it hardly can admit it. As I was holding raised on them my brows, behold, a spirit with 6 feet darts forth in front of one and fastens wholly on him. With middle feet it bound him round the paunch, and with the forward ones his arms it seized, then thrust its teeth through one cheek and the other. The hindmost it stretched upon his thighs, and put its tail through in between the two, and up behind along the reins outspread it. Ivy was never fastened by its barbs upon a tree so, as this horrible reptile upon the other's limbs entwined its own. Then they stuck close, as if of heated wax they had been made, and intermixed their color. Nor one nor other seemed now what he was. E'en as proceedeth on before the flame upward along the paper a brown color, which is not black as yet, and then the white dies. The other 2 looked on, and each of them cried out, "O me, Agnello, how thou changest! Behold, thou now art neither 2 nor 1. Already the 2 heads had become one, when there appeared to us 2 figures mingled into one face, wherein the 2 were lost. Of the 4 lists were fashioned the 2 arms, the thighs and legs, the belly and the chest members became that never yet were seen. Every original aspect there was cancelled. 2 and yet none did the perverted image appear, and such departed with slow pace. Even as a lizard, under the great scourge of day's canicular, exchanging hedge, lightning appeareth if the road it cross, thus did appear, coming towards the bellies of the two others, a small fiery serpent, livid and black as is a peppercorn. And in that part whereat is first received our ailment, it one of them transfixed, then downward in front of him extended. The one transfixed looked at it, but said naught. Nay, rather, with feet motionless he yawned, just as if sleep or fever had assailed him. He at the serpent gazed, and it at him, one through the wound, the other through the mouth, smote violently, and the smoke commingled. Henceforth be silent, Lucian, where he mentions wretched Sabellus and Nasidius, and wait to hear what now shall be shot forth. Be silent, Ovid, of Cadmus and Arethusa, for if him to be a snake, her to a fountain, converts he fabling, that I grudge him not. Because two natures never front to front has he transmuted, so that both the forms to interchange their matter ready were. Together they responded in such wise that to a fork the serpent cleft his tail, and eke the wounded drew his feet together. The legs together with the thighs themselves adhered so, that in a little time the juncture no sign whatever made that was apparent. He with the cloven tail assumed the figure the other one was losing, and his skin became elastic, and the other's hard. I saw the arms draw inward at the armpits, and both feet of the reptile that were short lengthen as much as those contracted were. Thereafter the hind feet, together twisted, became the member that a man conceals, and of his own the wretch had two created. While both of them the exhalation veils with a new color, and engenders hair on one of them, and depilates the other, the one uprose, and down the other fell, though turning not away their impious lamps, underneath which each one his muzzle changed. He who was standing drew it towards the temples, and from excess of matter which came thither issued the ears from out the hollow cheeks. What did not backward run and was retained of that excess made to the face a nose, and the lips thickened far as was befitting. He who lay prostrate thrust his muzzle forward, and backward draws the ears into his head in the same manner as a snail its horns. And so the tongue, which was entire and apt for speech before, is cleft, and the biforked in the other closes up, and the smoke ceases. The soul, which to a reptile has been changed, along the valley hissing takes to flight, and after him the other speaking sputters. Then did he turn upon him his new shoulders, and said to the other, I'll have Buoso run, crawling as I have done along this road. In this way I beheld the seventh ballast shift and reshift, and here be my excuse the novelty, if aught my pen transgress. And notwithstanding that mine eyes might be somewhat bewildered, and my mind dismayed, they could not flee away so secretly but that I plainly saw Puccio Sciancato, and he it was whose soul of three companions which came in the beginning was not changed. The other was he whom thou, Gavil, weepest. Canto 26. Rejoice, O Florence, since thou art so great that over sea and land thou beatest thy wings, and throughout hell thy name is spread abroad. Among the thieves 5 citizens of thine like these I found, whence shame comes unto me, and thou thereby to note great honor risest. But if when morn is near our dreams are true, feel shalt thou in a little time from now what Prato, if none other, craves for thee. And if it now were, it were not too soon. Would that it were, seeing it needs must be, for 'twill aggrieve me more the more I age. We went our way, and up the stairs the Bournes had made us to descend before, remounted my conductor and drew me. And following the solitary path among the rocks and ridges of the crag, the foot without the hand sped not at all. Then sorrowed I, and sorrow now again, when I direct my mind to what I saw, and more my genius curb than I am wont, that it may run not unless virtue guide it, so that if some good star or better thing have given me good, I may myself not grudge it. As many the hind, who on the hill rests at the time when he who lights the world his countenance keeps least concealed from us, while as the fly gives place unto the gnat, seeth the glow-worms down along the valley, perchance there where he ploughs and makes his vintage, with flames as manifold resplendent all, was the 8th Bolgia, as I grew aware as soon as I was where the depth appeared. And such as he, who with the bears avenged him, beheld Elijah's chariot at departing, what time the steeds to heaven erect uprose, for with his eye he could not follow it, so as to see aught else than flame alone, even as a little cloud ascending upward. Thus each along the gorge of the entrenchment was moving, for not one reveals the theft, and every flame a sinner steals away. I stood upon the bridge uprisen to see, so that if I had seized not on a rock, down had I fallen without being pushed. And the leader who beheld me so attent exclaimed, "Within the fires the spirits are, each swathes himself with that wherewith he burns." "My master," I replied, "by hearing thee I am more sure, but I surmised already it might be so, and already wished to ask thee who is within that fire, which comes so cleft at top, it seems uprising from the pyre where Eteocles with his brother placed." He answered me, "Within there are tormented Ulysses and Diomed, and thus together they unto vengeance run as unto wrath. And there within their flame do they lament the ambush of the horse, which made the door whence issued forth the Romans' gentle seed. Therein is wept the craft, for which being dead Diadema still deplores Achilles, and pain for the Palladium there is born. If they within those sparks possess the power to speak," I said, "thee, master, much I pray and re-pray that the prayer be worth 1,000, that thou make no denial of awaiting until the horned flame shall hither come. Thou seest that with desire I lean towards it." And he to me, "Worthy is thy entreaty of much applause, and therefore I accept it. But take heed that thy tongue restrain itself. Leave me to speak, because I have conceived that which thou wishest, for they may disdain perchance, since they were Greeks, discourse of thine." When now the flame had come unto that point, where to my leader it seemed time and place, after this fashion did I hear him speak. O ye, who are twofold within one fire, if I deserved of you while I was living, if I deserved of you, or much, or little, when in the world I wrote the lofty verses, do not move on. But one of you declare whither, being lost, he went away to die. Then of the antique flame, the greater horn, murmuring, began to wave itself about even as a flame doth which the wind fatigues. Thereafterward the summit to and fro, moving as if it were the tongue that spake, it uttered forth a voice, and said, When I from Circe had departed, who concealed me more than a year near there unto Gaeta, or ever yet Aeneas named it so, nor fondness for my son, nor reverence for my old father, nor the due affection which joyous should have made Penelope, could overcome within me the desire I had to be experienced of the world, and of the vice and virtue of mankind. But I put forth on the high open sea with one sole ship, and that small company by which I never had deserted been. Both of the shores I saw as far as Spain, far as Morocco, and the Isle of Sardis, and the others which the sea bathes round about. I and my company were old and slow when at that narrow passage we arrived, where Hercules his landmarks set as signals, that no man farther onward should adventure. On the right hand behind me I left Seville, and on the other I already had left Ceuta. O brothers, who admit 100,000 perils, I said, have come unto the west, to this so inconsiderable vigil, which is remaining of your senses still, be ye unwilling to deny the knowledge, following the sun of the unpeopled world. Consider ye the seed from which ye sprang. Ye were not made to live like unto brutes, but for the pursuit of virtue and of knowledge. So eager did I render my companions with this brief exhortation for the voyage, that then I hardly could have held them back. And having turned our stern unto the morning, we of the oars made wings for our mad flight, evermore gaining on the larboard side. Already all the stars of the other pole that night beheld, and ours so very low it did not rise above the ocean floor. 5 times rekindled, and as many quenched had been the splendor underneath the moon, since we had entered into the deep pass, when there appeared to us a mountain, dim from distance, and it seemed to me so high as I had never any one beheld. Joyful were we, and soon it turned to weeping, for out of the new land a whirlwind rose, and smote upon the forepart of the ship. 3 times it made her whirl with all the waters. At the 4th time it made the stern uplift, and the prow go downward, as pleased another, until the sea above us closed again. Canto 27. Already was the flame erect and quiet to speak no more, and now departed from us with permission of the gentle poet, when yet another, which behind it came, caused us to turn our eyes upon its top by a confused sound that issued from it. As the Sicilian bull, that bellowed first with the lament of him, and that was right, who with his file had modulated it, bellowed so with a voice of the afflicted, that, notwithstanding it was made of brass, still it appeared with agony transfixed. Thus, by not having any way or issue first from out of the fire, to its own language converted were the melancholy words. But afterwards, when they had gathered way up through the point, giving it that vibration the tongue had given them in their passage out, we heard it said, O thou, at whom I aim my voice, and who but now wast speaking Lombard, saying, Go now thy way, no more I urge thee, because I come perchance a little late, to stay and speak with me, let it not irk thee. Thou seest it irks not me, and I am burning. If thou but lately into this blind world hast fallen down from that sweet Latian land, wherefrom I bring the whole of my transgression, say if the Romagnols have peace or war, for I was from the mountains there between Urbino and the yoke whence Tiber bursts. I still was downward bent and listening, when my conductor touched me on the side, saying, Speak thou, this one elation is. And I, who had beforehand my reply in readiness, forthwith began to speak, O soul, that down below there art concealed, Romagna thine is not, and never has been without war in the bosom of its tyrants. But open war I none have left there now. Ravenna stands as it long years has stood. The eagle of Polenta there is brooding, so that she covers Servia with her vans. The city which once made the long resistance, and of the French a sanguinary heap, beneath the green paws finds itself again. Verruccio's ancient mastiff, and the new who had made such bad disposal of Montagna, where they are wont to make wimbles of their teeth, the cities of Lamone and Saturno, governs the lion cell of the white lair, who changes sides twixt summertime and winter. And that of which the Savio bathes the flank, even as it lies between the plain and mountain, lives between tyranny and a free state. Now I entreat thee, tell us who thou art. Be not more stubborn than the rest have been, so that thy name hold front there in the world. After the fire, a little more had roared in its own fashion. The sharp point it moved this way and that, and then gave forth such breath. If I believed that my reply were made to one who to the world would e'er return, this flame without more flickering would stand still. But inasmuch as never from this depth did any one return, if I hear true, without the fear of infamy, I answer. I was a man of arms, then Cordelier, believing thus begirt to make amends, and truly my belief had been fulfilled but for the high priest, whom may ill betide, who put me back into my former sins, and how and wherefore I will have thee hear. While I was still in the form of bone and pulp my mother gave to me, the deeds I did were not those of a lion, but a fox. The machinations and the covert ways I knew them all, and practiced so their craft that to the ends of the earth the sound went forth. When now unto that portion of mine age I saw myself arrived, when each one ought to lower the sails and coil away the ropes, that which before had pleased me then displeased me, and penitent and confessing I surrendered. Ah, woe is me, and it would have bestead me. The leader of the modern Pharisees, having a war near unto later on, not with the Saracens nor with the Jews, for each one of his enemies was Christian, and none of them had been to conquer Acre, nor merchandising in the Sultan's land, nor in the high office, nor the sacred orders in him regarded, nor in me that cord which used to make those girt with it more meagre. But even as Constantine sought out Sylvester to cure his leprosy within Soracta, so this one sought me out, as an adept, to cure him of the fever of his pride. Counsel he asked of me, and I was silent, because his words appeared inebriate. And then he said, Be not thy heart afraid. Henceforth I thee absolve, and thou instruct me how to raise Palestrina to the ground. Heaven have I power to unlock and lock, as thou dost know. Therefore the keys are two, the which my predecessor held not dear. Then urged me on his weighty arguments there, where my silence was the worst advice, and said I, Father, since thou washest me of that sin into which I now must fall, the promise long with the fulfillment short will make thee triumph in thy lofty seat. Francis came afterward, when I was dead, for me. But one of the black cherubim said to him, Take him not, do me no wrong. He must come down among my servitors, because he gave the fraudulent advice from time which forth I have been at his hair. For who repents cannot be absolved, nor can one both repent and will at once, because of the contradiction which consents not. O miserable me! How I did shudder when he seized on me, saying, Peradventure thou didst not think that I was a logician. He bore me unto Minos, who entwined 8 times his tail about his stubborn back, and after he had bitten it in great rage, said, Of the thievish fire a culprit this. Wherefore here where thou seest I am lost, invested thus in going I bemoan me. When it had thus completed its recital, the flame departed uttering lamentations, writhing and flapping its sharp-pointed horn. Onward we passed, both I and my conductor, up o'er the crag above another arch which the moat covers, where is paid the fee by those who, sowing discord, win their burden.